This is VOA Africa.
Hello, Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, October 20th. This is Africa. Due to the global outbreak of coronavirus, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. The Nigerian judicial panel investigating claims of police brutality and the alleged shooting of protesters in Lagos started its formal proceedings Tuesday, promising neutrality and justice. Independent inquiries into police abuses are a core demand of the protesters who demonstrated nationwide for more than 2 weeks. Peaceful protests turned violent on October 20th when witnesses and rights group Amnesty International say soldiers opened fire at protesters, killing some of them. The army, however, is denying that its troops were there. Chair Justice Doris Okuwobi says the panel is independent from the government and will ensure justice for victims of police misconduct and for those affected by the unfortunate incident of the alleged shootings by the military. Okuwobi says so far, none of the 15 complaints received are related to the Flashpoint shooting in Lekki. Nigerian Bar Association President Olumide Akipata says his members will represent complainants without charging a fee, but that he had received only a few calls related to Lekki. Protest leaders and others say they are afraid of the government retribution if they speak about the shootings, according to Reuters. Zimbabwe authorities are hailing a sustainable farming technique called Pfumvudza as a breakthrough to help end the country's long-standing food insecurity. But as Columbus Mavhunga reports from Harare, some critics point to its limits.
Zimbabwe is hoping to one day regain its former title as the breadbasket of Southern Africa. 52-year-old George Nyamakawa is one of millions of farmers authorities are training under a UN-backed program called Pfumvudza. Pfumvudza, which means early shoots in Shona, is a method of conservation agriculture that focuses on small plots, retains water longer, and is more efficient than large-scale plowing.
It is easy to maintain. At the same time, it gives more food to the nation.
The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, has trained government officials on the method to help combat food shortages that have plagued Zimbabwe for over a decade. Zimbabwe's government has touted the program as a possible food security solution. But the UN's World Food Program knows it is still providing food aid to about 8 million Zimbabweans, more than half the population.
I think it will take a bit more time to really work towards zero hunger and eradicate the problem altogether.
Early shoots farming has its limitations, says Mandevamba Rukuni, a former agriculture economics professor who now directs a charity focused on farming innovation.
The main one is very labor intensive. And Zimbabwe, like most other countries, labor is becoming more and more scarce, especially in rural areas. People are moving to urban areas.
Farmers like Nyamakawa say are willing to do the extra work if the yields are higher and if they can count on authorities for support. Columbus Mavhunga for VOA News, Harare.
The Rwandan businessman suspected of financing the country's 1994 genocide is in The Hague, awaiting trial on Tuesday. The United Nations International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals said in a statement Monday that 87-year-old Felicien Kabuga will soon go before a judge. Kabuga was moved to The Hague Monday from France, where he evaded arrest for more than 22 years before his capture near Paris in May. Kabuga's attorney sought to have him tried in France, but last month, the country's top court approved his transfer. Kabuga faces multiple charges, including complicity in genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, and crimes against humanity. Kabuga allegedly bankrolled Hutu militia groups and the radio and television broadcasts that encouraged the killings. No trial date has been set, but a spokesman for the UN court says it is likely Kabuga's trial will begin in 2021. Healthy volunteers are being deliberately infected with the coronavirus to try to speed up the development of a vaccine under plans announced by the British government. Residual reports from London.
All current coronavirus vaccine trials involve giving volunteers the potential vaccine or a placebo and then waiting until enough of them have been exposed to the virus through their daily lives. That can take months or years. The British government announced this week it plans to begin so-called human challenge trials, deliberately infecting young and healthy human volunteers with the virus to speed up the development of vaccines. Several people have already volunteered.
So many people struggling right now, and I want this pandemic to be over. Every day that goes on, more cases are going on, more people are dying. And if this vaccine trial could mean that this period of trauma for the whole world will be over sooner, I want to help. I want to be a part of that.
Personally, I can't let this opportunity to do something, to really do something, pass me by when I'm at such lower risk than other people.
The government plans to invest more than $43.4 million in the challenge trial. The World Health Organization says it could be significant.
There is a very long history of this for development of a number of vaccines that has been a part of what has gone on with, say, the development of the cholera vaccines and the typhoid vaccines.
The WHO has expressed some concerns.
Volunteers must have full consent and they must select the volunteers in order to minimize their risk, because you will be challenging people with a virus that we do not have a treatment for.
Infections, hospitalizations and deaths from the coronavirus are rising sharply in many countries around the world. A vaccine remains the best hope of any return to some kind of normality.
At this point in time, we do not have a way of stopping transmission, and we do not even have the financial capacity to give multiple antibody treatments, steroids, etc., like Donald Trump received, to everybody in the population that ends up needing treatment. The cost is quite large for these kind of treatments. We don't have a vaccine, and therefore, as a result, we need to contain the spread of this virus, not just manage it, contain it.
The initial aim of the British research team will be to discover the smallest amount of virus it takes to cause the COVID-19 infection, using controlled doses of the virus. If approved by regulators and an ethics committee, it's hoped the full challenge trial could begin in May 2021, still many months away. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but this year most healthcare facilities are focused on the coronavirus pandemic. US Anita Powell spoke to a breast cancer survivor in South Africa who is trying to protect against both COVID-19 and a cancer recurrence.
Leanne Upiter-Beer knew something was wrong. For weeks, the 49-year-old preschool principal had noticed disconcerting changes in her right breast.
So I kind of went in for my mammogram knowing that I had breast cancer. I could feel it. I knew that was what had happened.
She was right. Hers was an aggressive, advanced form of breast cancer. A few days later, she started 6 grueling months of chemotherapy. Now that she's recovered, she takes steps to avoid catching coronavirus.
I am still very cautious. You know, when anybody's with me, they say, my God, how many times do you sanitize your hands? And I go, what have I got to lose? You know, I need to just sanitize my hands. And I don't worry to say to somebody, please put your mask on, you know, or, you know, can you just sit a little further away from me?
Medical professionals stress that South Africa's battle against breast cancer continues even as the pandemic rages. Dr. Sadia Laher, who worked at a breast cancer unit at a government hospital, says awareness and screening have improved, but more work needs to be done.
We certainly have a better pickup rate of our cancers as well that has come to the fore with our increase in screening and awareness. Having said that, there's a lot of risk factors that have also changed, making breast cancer more common.
But Laher says there's good news.
There have also been changes in how we manage breast cancer and what we can do technologically, technological improvements that have allowed us to manage and treat early breast cancers differently.
South Africa is one of the world's most unequal societies, and the health system makes that abundantly clear. Upiter Beer says free screening is important, but she also worries about breast cancer patients who don't have the resources needed to recover.
I think it is that post-cancer treatment, that support, that's where the meat of your recovery is. It's not a very glamorous term, but I feel that makes a big difference to a woman.
Shortly after the school principal was declared cancer-free, the coronavirus pandemic landed in South Africa. She now faces the task of rebuilding her immunity while also safeguarding the 70 small children in her care. She says she's thrilled to be back, even though she knows that her job poses health risks. For her, it's a daily reminder of how precious life is. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer in women globally. The World Health Organization says there were over 2 million new cases of breast cancer in 2018. More than 60% of all breast cancer deaths occur in developing countries. Experts say late diagnosis is a serious challenge in the fight against breast cancer in sub-Saharan Africa. VOA Health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke earlier this year with Dr. Beatrice Weafe Adai, a Ghanaian breast surgeon, chairperson of the Ghana Cancer Board and founder of Breast Care International, an organization working to fight breast cancer in Ghana and lower the incidence of late-stage disease and diagnosis. She elaborates on progress made in the fight against the disease in Ghana and some remaining challenges.
When we started, it was like a lot of people didn't understand what we were talking about, because to them, there was nothing like breast cancer. It used to be like a boil in the breast, but not breast cancer. But with the years going by, breast cancer has become a household name. Everyone at least knows about somebody who has been affected by breast cancer. Men are also fighting with us because the men are also identifying themselves, their wives, their mothers, their sisters, their children, and so we are in the fight together. We are getting some people coming early to the hospital because they've heard that you can have breast cancer and still have your breast intact. So some women are rushing to come to the hospital for breast conserving surgery to be done for them. And we also keep having our breast cancer survivors increasing with the years. The knowledge about breast cancer has increased dramatically. The difference is whether they know how to do their own breast self-examination or whether they are doing it at all. So we still have the challenge of having some women still coming late. And I'm sure that will take some time. We also still have the stereotypes, the psychosocial and cultural beliefs about breast cancer. And that will also change with time because it's a generational thing. A lot of the youth are going to be educated, and so they will be able to read and write and check for information. By the time they grow up, they would have known a lot about the disease. They will not believe that it's caused by witchcraft. They will not believe that breast cancer is a spiritual disease.
That was VOA Health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Dr. Beatrice Weafe Adai. a Ghanaian breast surgeon, chairperson of the Ghana Cancer Board, and founder of Breast Care International. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the U.S. Senate approves President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee. We'll be right back.
Is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back to Africa 54. When will we know who wins the November 3rd U.S. presidential election? That's today's What You Need to Know About the Vote.
Hello and welcome to VOA Africa. A record number of Americans are expected to vote in November 3rd election by mailing in their ballots instead of going to the polling stations. What does that mean for when we will know who won? Take a look.
It's easy to declare the winner of an election when one candidate has a huge lead. But when the vote is close, it can take time to determine a winner. Votes cast at a polling center are quickly counted. But the process is much slower for mail-in ballots. It takes time for the filled-out ballots to arrive, for election officials to inspect them for authenticity, and to complete the count. So in a close election, with a high percentage of mail-in ballots, it could take days and possibly weeks to know who won. Many COVID-concerned voters are expected to vote by mail, increasing chances the 2020 presidential election may not be decided quickly.
Join us tomorrow for a look at younger U.S. voters. Early voting is underway across the United States, and the number of people who turned out in Florida last week shattered opening day records for in-person early voting. Lilia Anisimova has more in this story, narrated by Anna Rice.
Long lines on the first day of early voting in Florida. The southern state is one of the key so-called battleground states that could prove decisive in the presidential election because it has a large number of electoral college votes. Whoever wins the state will receive 29 electoral college votes, a big win on the way to winning the presidency. Opinion polls show former Democratic Vice President Joe Biden with a slight lead over Republican President Donald Trump.
For the past 6 months, Biden has consistently been polling ahead of Trump, from about 2 to 6% higher than Trump.
The intensity of this year's election seems to be driving people in Florida to vote early in record numbers.
I've been a resident of Miami Beach for 25 years. My husband and I came here from New York City. And this is the most important vote of my lifetime. I'm 80 years old. My husband is 82, and this is so important. We wanted to be here on the first. I am so glad there's so many people here.
I think early voting is like anything else. If you can beat the crowds and get it out of the way, then it's a good thing to do, because you never know what can happen in a week or 2 weeks from now on a personal scheduling basis. So if I had the time today, I decided to take advantage of it.
Well, I get up early anyway for my job, but I want to get it over with. Everybody needs to vote. I thought it'd be a mildly smaller line than it is, but I'll stay here till I get it over with, and I'll go back to work.
Experts predict an extremely high turnout this year and long lines in front of the polling stations. In addition, over 2.5 million people have already mailed in their ballots. For Lilia Anisimova in Miami, Florida, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Foreign policy issues have not been a major focus of the U.S. presidential campaign, which has centered on the coronavirus pandemic and resulting economic recession. However, as VOA's Brian Padden reports, President Donald Trump's hardline stances against China and Cuba could help him in key swing states he needs to win the November 3rd election.
During the final presidential debate on Thursday, national security threats were only briefly addressed. When asked about North Korea's continued development of nuclear weapons, President Donald Trump defended his diplomatic outreach to leader Kim Jong-un.
You know what, North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good relationship
Trump,
with leaders of other countries is a good thing.
Democratic candidate Joe Biden criticized Trump's unilateral foreign policy approach that he said has failed to restrain America's adversaries.
He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
The Trump administration has cited restarting North Korean nuclear talks among its foreign policy accomplishments, along with brokering improved relations between Israel and some of its neighbors, negotiating a peace deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan, defeating ISIS in Syria, all while withdrawing American forces from foreign conflicts and persuading allies to pay a greater share of the costs for stationing U.S. troops abroad. While Biden faults Trump for allowing Iran, Russia, and China to expand their power and influence as the U.S. pulls back from its global leadership role. And in particular, he denounced Trump for refusing to confront Russian leader Vladimir Putin over reports that Russia paid bounties to the Taliban for killing U.S. soldiers. Except in times of war, foreign policy does not usually play a major role in U.S. elections, but this year Trump's tough trade restrictions imposed on communist Cuba and efforts to depose Venezuela's socialist leader Nicolas Maduro could increase his support among Cuban Americans in Florida.
The Trump's position, the anti-Castro position and pro-democracy position in Venezuela are helping Trump with a small segment of the electorate.
It is unclear if Trump's strong support for Israel can cut into Biden's support from Jewish Americans in Florida, who voted overwhelmingly for Trump's Democratic opponent Hillary Clinton in 2016. The president's tariffs on China for unfair trade could also shore up his support among working-class voters in industrial states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. Trump won these key swing states in 2016, and this year they could again determine the winner of a close contest. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
The U.S. Senate approved President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Monday night. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson reports.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
With President Trump looking on, Judge Amy Coney Barrett takes the oath to become an Associate Justice of the nation's highest court.
She is one of our nation's most brilliant legal scholars, and she will make an outstanding justice on the highest court in our land.
On this vote,
by a vote of 52 to 48 Monday, the U.S. Senate confirmed the 48-year-old mother of 7 and devout Catholic to fill the vacancy left by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg last month. All but one Republican supported Barrett, members of the president's party calling her a well-qualified nominee.
Tonight we can place a woman of unparalleled ability and temperament on the Supreme Court. We can take another historic step toward a judiciary that fulfills its role with excellence.
But all Democrats voted against her, arguing that with early voting already underway, the confirmation vote is too close to Election Day.
The Republican Senate majority decided to thwart the will of the people and confirm a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court in the middle of a presidential election after more than 60 million Americans have voted. Let the record show that tonight the Republican majority will break 231 years of precedent and become the first majority to confirm a Supreme Court justice this close to Election Day.
Democrats concerned Barrett cements a 6-3 conservative majority on the court.
The cases that could be in jeopardy with a Justice Barrett on the Supreme Court cover a vast range of issues. Issues which together affect hundreds of millions of Americans' lives, from health care to education to consumer protection to marriage equality.
But during a 4-day confirmation process, Barrett told lawmakers she would not bring a personal agenda to judicial decisions, drawing praise from the top Republican on the Judiciary Committee.
For the young conservative women out there who are pro-life and embrace your faith, there's a seat at the table for you. This is historic. This nomination is different. This is a breakthrough for conservative young women.
Barrett will almost immediately hear key cases, including a challenge to the legality of an Obama administration health care law that provides insurance coverage to millions of Americans, as well as possible challenges to the record numbers of mail-in ballots in the 2020 election. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.